Hello and welcome if you are new to the Legacy Brick Studios channel, and today we are going to be doing our next episode of the Star Wars Rebels recaps, and we are going to be looking at the episode Rise of the Old Masters, and it was a great episode in my opinion, guys. I'm going to give my rating at the end of the video. I thought of doing this new thing where I would give a rating to the episode from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst in my opinion, and I'm going to compare those to a bunch of different things, maybe an episode of the Clone Wars or another episode of Rebels, or just what we know they can produce from us so far. So that's my idea for the end of this video, and like always, if you have any comments at the end, please leave them down below, how you think I did. Keep that in mind. I always love hearing appropriate feedback. Don't just tell me the video sucks and then don't tell me why. I need to know why so I can improve it for the next time. So, let's start this episode off. When the episode first jumps out at you and appears, you see this weird camera angle of Ezra using the Force, much like Luke Skywalker did with Yoda on Dagobah. And to be honest, it was a little weird. It was a little weird for an opening, but I did like how it worked out in the end. Looking back at it, it does look good, and it looks very interesting, something we haven't really seen before in Star Wars, and that's always a good thing. But it's always good to see how the Jedi training has been the same. The way that Kanan has been trained is the same way that he's teaching Ezra. He knows what he's doing with this. To a point, we discovered that throughout the episode, and that's kind of interesting how we can look at that. But Kanan gives Ezra his lightsaber, and basically the same thing happens that younglings would do in the temple with Yoda teaching them, and the same thing that would happen on the Millennium Falcon with Luke and Obi-Wan. And it's interesting to see how that all just flows together, and it keeps the same. It does not, it's very resolute in that, I guess. But so we have Zeb and Chopper. They end up throwing these bottles at him, and he can't deflect them because they're going at him so fast, and he falls off the top of the Ghost. The Kanan reaches out with the Force and brings him up. Very interesting how that works out. And then we also get a look at one of the creatures from the Clone Wars that Dave Filoni created. I forget the exact name, but here's a picture of it too. And they come back on board the ship, and we're just thrown into this little plot. What they're going to do, they're going to attack the space. They have received a transmission from, I forget his name, I don't remember, but the actor's name is Brent Spiner, who voices this guy, and he was Data from Star Trek, if you didn't know that. Very interesting how they're combining that, the two series and whatnot. Also, when the transmission comes up, I love that they throw this in there. For the previous episode, they stole a TIE fighter. If you have not seen it yet, definitely go check that out. But they stole a TIE fighter, and the opening for this little what's it called? The HoloNet. The HoloNet. The opening scene for it is the broadcast of a stolen TIE fighter and how something happened with the prisoners, and it just goes off of that, and then all of a sudden this happens. I found that very interesting how they included that in there, and I liked it that it kind of served a purpose. It might even serve a bigger purpose than what we even realized. We don't know that yet, but we're thrown into this mission, and of course Luminara is involved. They have to go rescue her from the prison, and they just automatically know what to do. They already have a plan, and immediately they're going to Stygian Prime. And it is a great planet, guys. I love absolutely love the design for this planet, guys. Very dark, snowy. It's awesome. I love the look of it, and it was actually from the comic book series Darth Maul's son of Dathomir, and he was put into this prison on the same planet, the same prison as well, and that's what it was inspired from. And I love the connection. You always have to see that connection in Star Wars. I always love seeing that. Also, we get a separate look at the Phantom like we've never seen before. I don't believe up until this point we've actually seen the Phantom come out of the Ghost. It's kind of like an escape pod to a point, but it's this separate ship that stores in it. And here is a look at that as well. It's an okay design. I'm not thrilled with it. I've definitely seen pictures of it in Lego form. Have not gotten it yet, guys, but I definitely will be picking that up soon. Maybe Christmas time. But here's another picture of the inside and whatnot. But when they arrive on the planet, everybody jumps out of the ship and they jump on this platform, but Kanan was the first to do so, and he was to quietly take out the stormtroopers. But Ezra arrives on the scene and he makes a noise, and more stormtroopers keep coming, and it's kind of frustrating. It's definitely frustrating to see Ezra, how he feels about the situation, being an apprentice to Kanan. And we definitely see that throughout the whole entire episode, and it's one of those themes of this episode. Also, when Ezra was doing his little training at the beginning, we also heard Kanan speak the words of Yoda, "Do or do not, there is no try." And that is echoed throughout this episode. It starts out the episode and it ends the episode, and we learn what it means through it. And it's just a great way of storytelling with that. In my opinion, I love the way they did it. But Hera in the Phantom, she is under the platform. She parks the Ghost there, and there is actually the scrambling code. And I find it very interesting the way that works. Nobody can detect them because they have the scrambler. But all of a sudden, these bird-like creatures, which are called TBDs, reason behind that is actually when they were making this episode, the creatures always had a name, but nobody ever called them anything. They were just to be determined, so they called them TBDs. It's kind of interesting how that works out in the end. That's actually their name, but that's a great way of doing it, I guess. I was wondering, like, where do they get these names from? Well, that was an interesting one, I guess. But they infiltrate the base. They take out all these stormtroopers that see them, and throughout this episode, a lot of comedy kind of breaks it up. They get into the elevator, and Sabine's like, "This plane is always getting worse," and Zeb says, "Yeah, he's gonna change it again," and Kanan's like, "I'm standing right here." And it's a great moment. It's a funny moment, and I'm glad they throw those moments in there to get a little, like, comedy between all the action, between all the hard moments, I guess. They throw that in there to make it all a little bit lighter, and that's what Star Wars has always done. A New Hope, of course, they always throw those comedic lines in there. It's always great. Scruffy looking nerve herder. Say that 10 times fast. But they always throw this little stuff in there. It makes you laugh. So yeah, I always love those moments that they throw that in there. And Rebels has always done that, it seems like, throughout the course of the series so far. And I hope they keep that up, because that's what makes Star Wars Star Wars. I mean, in the Marvel movies especially, that's an even better look at it. They definitely make it really funny. That's one thing I really enjoy about the Marvel movies. I'm always wondering how they're going to throw that in there, how they're going to throw the comedy in there when it's so dark. Especially with the new movie Age of Ultron. I mean, if you've seen the trailer to that, oh boy, things are getting really dark really fast. But they're always going to have that comedy in there, and that's one thing I like about Rebels. So another thing that's comedic, I guess, is the stormtrooper helmet gets caught between the doors and Zeb has to pull it out. Another one is Zeb. When they first infiltrate the base, Zeb props up a stormtrooper to the wall like he's still guarding it, so when the spotlight hits it, they think it's just a regular stormtrooper who's just at his post. But that's just a couple more examples of how they throw that comedy in there. But when they actually get to the prison, we find Luminara just sitting there, and we're wondering what's going on, and then all of a sudden she gets up and walks to this casket, and we're like, what in the heck just happened? And the Inquisitor walks to the door, and what the heck? So let's go through that for a minute. So what really happens is Luminara, in her last moments alive, this is her. This is a hologram of her. And we've seen those types of realistic holograms throughout Star Wars, especially in the Clone Wars, when the box episodes, you know what I'm talking about if you've seen those episodes. One episode is called The Box. Obi-Wan is undercover as Reiko Hardeen, and he gets into this hologram type, I guess, disguise as a, what are they exactly? Coruscant Republic. They're not Republic Commandos. What are they? They're blue Imperial Guards, but they're the blue kind. I'm honestly drawing a blank, guys. Wow, that's rough. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. You definitely know what I'm talking about, and you're probably getting a good laugh from it, and that's what we want here on this show. So, we've seen these types of holograms before. That was a long explanation. Anyways, we've seen these holograms before, and this is Luminara's last moments before she dies, basically. Here's a concept art of that. It looks pretty good. I always like the designs and seeing how they fit together with the episode. Also, fun fact, Luminara did not die in Kashyyyk. She did not. We tend to assume that because of the Blu-ray deleted scene. But that did not happen, according to this episode guide on StarWars.com. That did not happen. We don't know what happened yet, but she was captured and brought to this prison, and she was executed. That's what happened. We don't know how she got there. That's all we know. We don't know who her executioner was. Probably the Inquisitor, most likely, but we do not know. Anyways, the Inquisitor walks to the door, and he just has this very regal presence about him. I mean, we can definitely tell he is from Imperial standards, and what really made me like the Inquisitor even more was the scene the exclusive scene before Spark of Rebellion on ABC, the network premiere of it. And what made it even better, what made it even taste richer, is the fact that Darth Vader was in it, and he gives the Inquisitor these orders to destroy all the rest of the Jedi if they do not pledge themselves to the dark side. And what I find very interesting about that is, if you have seen the Clone Wars episode Children of the Force, we see Cad Bane bringing these Jedi kids to Darth Sidious on Mustafar, and he's trying to amass an army to his dark side wielding power kids, I guess, and train them in the ways of the dark side, and that is his original plan to defeat the Jedi. And I find it very interesting how we go back to that plan to try to get more and more Sith, I guess. But the question is Darth Vader doing that, or is the Emperor doing that? We don't know. We don't know who is in charge here, because Darth Vader gives the Inquisitor the orders. So, that is his orders, and he goes after Kanan and Ezra, because, of course, Agent Kallus, he told told the Inquisitor of their whereabouts. And Luminar, her body was used as a trap. She was used as bait, I guess. And that's really, really morbid, using a dead body as bait. I mean, that's pretty dark, guys. If you say this series isn't very dark, I mean, just think about it. Just think about it. Anyways, we also learned that Tipa Binlaba, I think that's her name, is Kanan's master. And that's her right there in the middle. And we also are going to get some more flashbacks of her in a new upcoming comic with Kanan as the main character of that. So I'm not going to go into that. I really don't know the character that well. She was on the Jedi Council in episode 1, I guess. But the Inquisitor knows Kanan's backstory. He knows everything. He's researched them. He knows them. And he knows his lightsaber forms. I mean, this guy's done his research. He's pretty good at what he does. And he has this lightsaber that's double-bladed. And it's more of a... it's like a fake. He's a fraud. He's not really a Sith. You can't believe he's a Sith. Contrary to popular belief, he is not a Sith. He does not possess Sith-like qualities. And we're going to explore that more and more with the show, I think. I do believe that. And I'm dying to know this guy's backstory. I'm dying to know it. And I hope we're going to get it. Anyways, Zeb and Sabine take out the elevators in the outpost in the prison, and all the stormtroopers are getting blown up, and there's no escape other than the platform, I guess you could say. Just the landing pad, I guess. I don't know what it's called exactly, but what else I find very interesting about this episode is the fact that the Inquisitor gives Ezra the chance to be a member of the dark side or not. And it's very interesting that Kanan didn't even tell Ezra what the dark side was, and Ezra's like, never heard of it. But I don't think he actually has ever heard of it, is the funny thing. Like, he says it sarcastically. I don't even think he's heard of the dark side or even knows what it is, really. But when the Inquisitor goes to strike Ezra down, Kanan grabs the Inquisitor's hand with the Force. Like, when the Inquisitor threw Kanan down, that is a big blow to him, because he is not a full-fledged Jedi Knight. He is a Padawan too. He is not a Jedi Knight at this point. He's not been trained that far, and that is a big blow to him when he is thrown down. So he gets back at the Inquisitor by doing something that Jedi don't really do, which is grabbing someone's lightsaber with the Force. And we never see that before in Star Wars, I don't think. Except for once when Asajj Ventress did it to escape Count Dooku. That's the only other time I can remember. But they escape through the doors and whatnot, and it is a test of strength when Ezra and Kanan both open the door with the Force. And it goes back to that do or do not, there is no try. And they end up escaping, throwing grenades at the stormtroopers, getting off the pad, and I found it very funny when Hera says, we have the fleet, and it's all these Tibbities. Tibbities. It's fun to say. You have to admit it, guys. It's fun to say. Tibbity. But they end up escaping, and another thing that the Inquisitor does is he throws his lightsaber at Kanan and Ezra, and Kanan hits it with his lightsaber, and the Inquisitor grabs it with the Force. So we do know he does use the Force. He's a Force user, but he's not full-fledged Sith. Anyways, back to Lothal. Ezra and Kanan, they're kind of sad. Ezra thinks that Kanan was gonna, ship him off to train with Luminara and not even care about him. And that's not at all what he wanted to do. And Kanan realizes that he's not going to be the best teacher. He's just not, because he hasn't even had his full training as a Padawan. But no matter what happens, they're gonna do it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't happen. If it does, it does. Do or do not, there is no try. They discover the meaning of that phrase. And the ending scene is Kanan handing Ezra his lightsaber and throwing rocks at him to see if Ezra will deflect it, and he does. And guys, that is a great episode, in my opinion. A lot of action, a lot of Star Wars morals, I guess you could say. I don't know how to exactly put it, but it's a great episode, guys. If you haven't seen it, please, please, please check it out. Especially if you're new to Rebels. I mean, I wouldn't advise you watching this first. I'd advise you starting from the beginning and going to now, because there's only like 5 episodes. But guys, seriously, you need to check this episode out. And a great time for that is, actually, I just realized this today, Friday nights on Disney Channel, they are now airing the show. And we're gonna see this episode, in fact, air for its first time on Disney Channel at 9 o'clock. So if you haven't seen this episode, definitely check it out then. And please, please, please leave a like down below if you liked the video. And if you didn't, leave a comment telling me why and how I could improve these episodes. And guys, the last episode got a great response, and I'm so happy for that. Seriously, guys, thank you. I got so many views on that video, guys, and it boosted my confidence. And I'm sorry that this episode did not get out in time. I'm sorry. I would have liked to have this out next week. Not next week, last week, sorry. But it just didn't happen. It just did not happen, and I have a lot going on now, so if episodes don't get up, please just don't complain and be like, because I am busy, and they're eventually gonna get out, just not in time sometimes. Without further ado, let's rate this episode. I almost forgot. So, out of 10, this 22-minute episode, I'm gonna give Rise of the Old Masters, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. 9.5, guys. Why do I think that? This is some great Star Wars, guys. Great Star Wars, and it really brings back that original trilogy vibe that we've all been waiting for the past, I don't know how many years. I have no problems with the prequels, guys. Some of my favorite Star Wars things come out of the prequels. Clone Wars, one of my favorites all time. But this episode brings it full circle, and it does a great job at it, throwing action, comedy, what it really means to be a Jedi. I mean, those are some heavy themes in this episode, guys. And this is the Inquisitor's, I guess, debut, formal debut. We've seen him in a hologram before, and with Darth Vader on that exclusive clip, but this is his debut, and it's a glorious, glorious episode, guys. And you need to check it out if you haven't seen it, so please do that right after this video. Down below, I have a way for you to watch Star Wars Rebels episodes and Star Wars Clone Wars episodes online. And just thank you for your support, guys. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.